Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to sit in the quiet of my office and talk to you about how you can decide who you should be listening to and how to handle when you hear people say, well, that was debunked. In just a minute.
With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend this time in your head.
So just the other day, I got an email from someone asking who they should believe. She was saying that she usually listened to Nina Teicholz and had read her books, and of course we've seen her in many of the documentaries. And there was a YouTuber who went through and debunked all of what Nina was saying. She sent me the link and I went ahead and I clicked on it and I watched a good portion of it. It was a vegan trying to disprove what Nina had been saying. And after a little while, I didn't watch the rest of it because it began to feel an awful lot like he said, she said bickering. And well, it got me thinking, maybe I should make a video about this and let you guys know how I feel about the people that I listen to and why I'm so confident in this way of eating. And honestly, it doesn't have anything to do with because some big name doctor or some big name scientist or journalist said I should. It really has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with my personal beliefs, my use of logic, and seeing what it's done for my family in a very, very personal way. I don't listen to just one person. I listen to many people, beyond many people. So how do we know which people to listen to? Who are the ones that are worth listening to? Well, let me put something into perspective for you. Let's look at the 7-country study that Ancel Keys did. One of the things that this YouTuber was talking about in this video was proving that Ancel Keys was actually right and Nina Teicholz is wrong. Yeah, sorry, he totally failed to convince me on that. But let's go ahead and talk about Ancel Keys. The 7-country study. One thing that a lot of people need to understand and don't understand is that many, many, many of these studies are political. That's one great way to look at it. There's 2 different opposing views, and this one side wants you to believe their view. And they will present it in a beautiful, pretty package and get people backing them to prove that it's real. Ancel Keys' 7-country study was done very poorly. It was a whole lot more than 7 countries. And he cherry-picked the ones that fit his view, his belief, and he picked the ones that would make him look right. What we need to understand is that a lot of studies do exactly that. There is always user bias. They could always be done better. There's very few, which are the controlled double-blind studies, that are actually done well. Very, very few. There's a reason that those aren't done, because a lot of times those end up disproving exactly what the person is attempting to prove. So they don't want to do them. So let's think about this logically. In this video, he claims that saturated fat and protein together are dangerous. I'm not entirely sure how you get that concept, because animals are on this planet living and thriving as protein and saturated fat. So why on earth, no pun intended, would animals be made out of meat and saturated fat if it's dangerous? They wouldn't be able to survive themselves, let alone with us consuming them. This planet was around far longer than we have been, and it was doing just fine without us. Then we show up, and we go from about 500 cc size of our brain. This is all anthropological dig sites and research. They're finding that people's brains used to only be about 500 cc's, and yet we went to over 1500 cc's while eating mostly animals. A lot of the tests done on these remains show that humans were actually more carnivorous than the wolves of that time. So if protein and saturated fat found in animals together is dangerous to us, how in the world did we manage to grow our brains 3 times their original size? Doesn't make much sense to me. Agriculture hadn't been invented at that point in time. We were nomadic. We moved around. We didn't build homes and stay in one place. We hunted and we traveled, and yes, we were very active, but we had to rely on animals and what we could forage or find. And honestly, that wasn't much because the animals want to eat what they can forage and find as well. How could something so dangerous grow an entire species to become the top of the food chain? So let's look at this from another perspective. How is it that carnivores and keto goers alike have cleaner and healthier arteries once they remove seed oils, refined sugars, including all of the processed carbohydrate products, and things like that? How are individuals like me able to get off antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, antipsychotics, simply by avoiding most, if not all, plants? How can I possibly have a CAC score of 0 if eating meat and fat together can cause heart disease? It doesn't make any logical sense. The number of people that I know and talk to on an almost daily basis that have reversed and completely gotten rid of their bipolar disorder, their manic depressive symptoms, their Hashimoto's disease, all kinds of other things are completely gone by eating mostly meat, if not all meat. Now, when I say cured or healed, you need to keep something in mind. If they were to go back to eating their previous ways, eating the vegetable oils, the seed oils, the fruits and veggies, the other plants that they were eating, the grains, the starches, I guarantee you their sickness, their illness would come back. That's what happens. Slowly poisoning yourself with anything, whether it be mercury or lead or carbohydrates, will have ramifications. Just because you remove the poison doesn't mean you could then go back to the poison and be okay with it. I know many people who have tried to go back to their old way of eating, and guess what? They went back to needing medication, including type 2 diabetes medication. Just because I say healed or cured does not mean it's actually gone. I mean, as long as they eat properly for themselves in their body. Because let's face it, we're not all the same. We're very similar, some of us, and some of us are very different. What you have to do is find out what works for you. And keep in mind, nature isn't stupid. This planet would thrive without our help or our intervention. It did. Just look at all the buffalo that used to be here on the planet until we kind of mucked it up. The animals were here before we were. They were fine without us. The plants that were on the planet back then are nothing like they are today. We've crossbred them to make them bigger, brighter, juicier, sweeter, all of that. We've altered all of the produce, all of it. One thing that we haven't altered, at least not on a scale like that, is the animals. The other thing that I have a hard time with when talking about the way that we eat and looking at the sustainability of lifestyle, and that includes, if you will allow me to say, our carbon footprint. I have a hard time with how many animals we are hurting and killing with our current industrial way of living. As a person that eats 98% meat, I could kill one animal for an entire year. Just one. One cow could feed me for an entire year. Maybe 1.5 cows if I'm really hungry. I eat minimal plants. I could grow all of the plants that I could consume in 1 year in a small garden for myself. And we have done that before. When we consume large amounts of plants though, thousands of animals die to protect those crops, whether they are mice, voles, moles, deer, chipmunk, squirrels, or so many more. They're killed to protect the crops. How is that sustainable? If we want to take the ethical high road and be killing as few animals as possible, then honestly what you need to do is you need to go carnivore. Because one cow will feed me for almost an entire year. Most guys need about 1.5 cows. So between Richard and I, we could kill 3 cows a year and that's it. 3. That's it. The other thing to keep in mind is that crops take from the soil. They don't give back to it. Animals are used for their manure to replenish the soil with nutrients so that we can grow more plants in place. Without the animals putting back into the soil, agriculture could literally destroy this planet. That's one of the reasons that even our meat doesn't have the same nutrition in it that it used to, because the grass that they are eating does not have the same nutrients in it because of monocropping and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and so many other things, chemicals in the air. There's so much working against us. And honestly, plants have been altered for so long that they aren't what they used to be. I believe that we used to be able to eat more plants. If produce was in its original form without pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, then I believe that we would be able to consume a lot more of them without negative side effects. I think that the chemical warfare that the plants have developed, we could be partially responsible for why they are the way they are. We're the ones that have been crossbreeding them and altering them and genetically modifying them. So what have we done that has increased the plant toxicity? Unfortunately, they aren't the same. So now that we have expanded and industrialized our world, guess what? Our brains have begun to shrink. They're shrinking. Every year that goes by, we lose just a little bit. Remember that 500 to 1500 cc's? Yeah, we're going down now. And that's been ever since we began relying more heavily on agriculture and plants. When we put down some roots and started growing some crops and gardens, that's when our brain started shrinking. Cancer is on the rise. Heart disease is on the rise. Obesity, diabetes, childhood cancers and diabetes, autoimmune disorders, so many other chronic conditions are running rampant. It started in the 1970s. You can look back and you can see, just look at pictures from, say, the 1950s. Nobody was overweight. There was 1 in 1,000 that looked overweight in a picture. You could have beaches packed full of people and everyone looked healthy. What changed? The food pyramid was invented. And let me tell you, that too was politics. It was who was vying for power and who could come up with the best idea to try to help the people. That's what happened to us. So once the food pyramid was not only invented, but encouraged and then enforced, this is where we're at now. It's as simple as that. One other thing that was in this email was she said, I thought it was settled science. This term kind of cracks me up because I don't really know that there's such a thing as settled science. Science is literally questioning everything and attempting to disprove something. That is what science is. You take something, you take a scenario, you formulate a theory about it, and then you test it and you try to prove it wrong, prove yourself wrong. That is what science is. There is no such thing as settled science. I mean, yes, we have gravity, but gravity here isn't even the same as it is on the moon. It's not the same as it is on Jupiter. So gravity here is different than gravity somewhere else. Settled science, it's kind of a misnomer. So how do I know what's right and what's wrong? Because if everything that everyone is saying has to be taken with a grain of Redmond's real salt, because don't use the other salt, please, then how do I know? How am I sure? How could I even trust what I'm being told? Well, I like to use myself and my family as an experimental group, honestly. We've all gained so much by going low carb. And every time we veer off of that, a lot of those symptoms come back. What does that tell me? We're on the right path. Are all of us the same? No. The kids can absolutely handle more plants than we can, but they still are all fairly low carb. And we are all meat-based. As much as Bella fights it, we're all meat-based. We have all gained so much health, gotten off medications. I don't see how that's a bad thing. So any guy on YouTube could say, oh yeah, it's not the way it works. Tell me that my entire family didn't gain health from this. Go ahead, tell me. I'm waiting because I can prove to you that it did. You don't have to believe me, but it did. The only thing that happened to Richard and I specifically that could be viewed as bad or dangerous according to modern Western medicine is that our LDL went up. But wait, did you know? High LDL, especially over 220, is protective against Alzheimer's and dementia and even strokes. And LDL is directly linked to your immune system. We have been falsely told and taught that LDL is the problem. That is the reason for your heart attacks. That is the reason for your heart disease. Not true. Actually, your triglycerides and your HDL and the ratio between the two is far more indicative of the health of your heart than LDL ever was. So why do we focus so much on that number? Why do we focus so much on that one little aspect? That one thing. I can go to the doctor and I can tell them that I used to be 120 pounds heavier and I used to be on all kinds of antidepressants and anxiety medications and everything used to hurt all the time. I was exhausted. They could look at me. They would look at my blood panel and they would say, your LDL is too high. You need to go on a statin. You are unhealthy because of this one marker. Every other marker of mine is moved in the right direction. Why would this one go against and go into a bad place? Maybe it's because what we were taught to believe, including what the doctors were taught to believe, is inaccurate. Why? It makes money. Overnight, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people became eligible to go on statins because they changed the guidelines. They said, everyone with an LDL of this much or higher needs to be on a statin. And overnight, when they dropped that number, that many more people became eligible to take this medication. And it was recommended that they do so. Do you know how much money that made the pharmaceutical companies? A lot. Sometimes it's more about their car payment than it is about your health. Keep that in mind. They don't always have your best interest at heart. All I know is that whenever my LDL goes below 200, I get sick. If it's over 220, I'm good and I don't get sick. And yet, remember, my CAC score is 0. So what exactly does that mean? I'm going to believe my own eyes, my own body, and the results of my close family. Period. No other studies, no other settled science is going to sway me away from what my family has seen and experienced. I will continue to learn and grow my knowledge base with the understanding that some of what I learn will be true and some won't be. There's no getting around that. Politics are involved. Money is involved. I will decide what is worth trying with my family, and we will observe the results. Sometimes things don't go as planned. I tried bringing some carbs back in. I learned exactly what I needed to. It didn't work. For my mental state, it does not work. And I'm okay with that, which is hilarious because I did it to try to stop the hair falling out. And now that I've started taking the iodine, my hair isn't falling out anymore. I tried something. It didn't work. Obviously not settled science on that front. But then I tried something else, the iodine, and it did work. This is the only way to truly know if eating low carb, if living this way will work for you. I guarantee you, you will not kill yourself in a year by trying keto or carnivore even. You won't. You will not become woefully deficient in nutrients in 12 months to the point that your legs fall off. Trust me, I know, because a lot of people can go vegan for years before they start to have problems. And plants and animals, we as humans are classified as animals. We don't run on the same parts. There's conversions involved, and we are different than the plants are. So there are people who can live on nothing but plants for 12 months and their legs don't fall off. I guarantee you, your legs aren't going to fall off if you try to go keto or carnivore for a year. Even your kids, they'll be good too. The best and only way to determine who is telling the truth is to use your own logic and experiment on yourself. Because what works for one person isn't guaranteed to work for another person. For some people, they thrive on high protein. Other people thrive on high fat. How do you know who's right? They're both right. Honestly, they've lived it themselves and they're proving that it's right. It's right for them. It doesn't mean that it's right for you. You don't have the same DNA. You don't have the same medical conditions. Even identical twins have not had all of the same experiences in their life. One child could have gotten stung by a bee and that could change something. One child could have gotten an illness and the other one didn't. One child could have been exposed to something in their class in school and the other one wasn't. So even identical twins end up with different results. Keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind when doing keto and carnivore, don't rely on products that someone is trying to sell you. Just because it says keto doesn't mean that it really is, and it does not mean that it's good for you. Remember, it could be more about their car payment than about your health. And if they can make a buck off of slapping the label keto on top of a package, guess what? They're going to try it. That's not keto in my opinion. That doesn't mean that sometimes we don't need supplements and we don't need electrolytes and we don't need supporting nutrition in other ways. But if it's a big giant package that's bright and says keto on it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to bring you your best health. I want us to go back to our roots. When we were running on the plains with the buffalo, growing our big, beautiful brains and soaking up the sun. Whole foods keto for 1 year, focusing on meat will give you all the proof that you need as to who is telling the truth and who is right. Listening to others can help us, but it can also hurt us. Listening to too many people gets confusing. Time to listen to yourself and see what your body tells you. Keep learning, keep experimenting, keep researching, but keep the understanding that not everything is going to apply to everyone. That, I think, is the biggest part to all of this. There are some people who may be able to thrive on this planet as vegans, but for some people, for many people, I am one of those people, that's not the case for me. I don't thrive on plants. I get hurt by them. And you cannot tell me, I don't care how big of a scientist you are and how high your IQ is or how many doctorates you have, you're not going to convince me that the way that I am eating is unhealthy for me. I feel better than I ever have in my life. I remember when I was 14 years old, I had joint pain and I had headaches and I had backaches, and goodness was I emotional. Nothing like this. I am free in so many ways now because I focus on animals as my food source. I don't know what other proof I need. I'll continue learning because I may find out something else that could help as well, like the iodine. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, please go check out The Iodine Crisis by Lynn Farrow. I will put the details down in the link below. I'm still trying to figure out how to include Amazon links. They changed their platform and I don't have a clue how to do it now. So I'm still working on trying to figure that out. As soon as I get a link, I'll put it in there. But the book is available on Audible. So if you don't have time to sit down and read, like me, then you would be able to at least listen to it. It's got a lot of really good information. I do not recommend that anybody jump into taking larger amounts of iodine without reading this book, at least, without doing more research and listening to podcasts and information about iodine. It's not simply upping your iodine like you would your vitamin C and just, oh yeah, just take more pills and you're totally fine and you'll just pee it out. There's a lot more to it than that. You will detox from bromide, and that can be nasty. That is like having the flu. No, that's not what we went through the other day because I'd already gone through some of my bromide detox. I've spoken with a lot of people that I know personally who are going through this iodine trial with me, basically, and doing their own experiments, and some of them are getting amazing results. Had I decided that finding low carb was enough for me and I'm going to stop right there because I might listen to something bad, then I would have missed out. So I encourage you to keep learning, keep researching, and keep looking for new information. But also keep in mind that you need to be the judge of how accurate or pertinent it is for yourself, because not everything will work for everyone. I just kind of wanted to come on here and let you guys know I understand. I also have been duped. I started keto that way with really high vegetables. Yeah, not the best option. And I could have very easily stopped and said it didn't work for me. So think for yourselves when people tell you something. Use your logic and try to take in the big picture, not just this one little piece that someone is talking about. I want to encourage you to try new things out, and you and your body can decide exactly what works for you. Don't be distressed when someone comes out and speaks against what you have found to be true for yourself. It's okay. Not everyone has to love you and not everyone has to agree with you, because in the end, we are all individuals. And this is your health journey. Be careful not to get sucked into anyone else's, and don't let them get sucked into yours as well. Thanks so much, you guys, for checking in with us today. Look down below for any other links that I'll may be able to figure out how to put down there, or all the links to my website, to my Facebook page, to my Mighty Network. Over there, we're doing our weight loss and wellness challenge for March. And Dr. Rimka is going to come in the middle of the month and talk to us about mental health and so many other things. We would absolutely love to see you guys over there. So check it out down below. I'm going to go downstairs and make some more bread, and I will see you guys on the way. Bye. Oh my gosh, these roosters, y'all. If have cleaner and healthier, including Oh my gosh, these roosters. A cow and a half between, if Redmond's, she's pertinent. I'm not going to go there.